I had a foster mother who thought I was the devil and that she had to kill me. And I think it was pretty traumatizing for her.
If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself for the podcast?
My name's Dan Alderson. I play guitar and do vocals in Horrified. A new EP's just come out last Friday, December 13th, via Testimony Records.
And how would you describe the music of Horrified?
Horrified started more kind of old school death metal, and we kind of evolved to a more like melodic and progressive style of death metal. And the progressive elements really starting to take more shape on the latest release, which will be expanded on in the future.
And where are you guys based?
Newcastle upon Tyne, which is in the northeast of the UK.
So let's go over the history of the band a little bit. Tell me when you formed and what you set out to accomplish.
Awesome. Well, actually, Horrified started as a bit of a side project from a band I was playing in at the time. In 2012, I started writing more kind of primitive, old school death metal riffs, which couldn't fit a much more technical kind of fiddle death metal band I was playing in at the time. So I just started a music production degree at Newcastle College, which is where I work at now, funnily enough. And I just used the studios in my own free time, doing my music production degree. And it just started as a studio project, really. We tracked a 3-track demo in the college studios. And then for my final major project in my second year, I recorded the debut album, like with a real drummer and more of a full lineup. And then from there, we started playing some shows. We played our first show in 2013, I believe, at a local festival called Biker Grave, which has expanded a lot since we played. The latest edition recently had Chapel of Disease and Solstice double headline, so the festival's come quite a long way since, so it's quite cool to have played the first one. Yeah, that's kind of how things got together, really.
So if I understand you correctly, Horrified started as a solo project.
Kinda, yeah. It was a solo project with a little bit of assistance. So I had a really good friend of mine who I met through the music production degree help me record the first 3-track demo. And then I did guitars, bass, and I had a friend of mine who I knew from just online, based in a city further south from us in Leeds, a guy called Sam Butterfield, who was a really nice guy. He tracked the vocals for me, then sent me the files over, and then I just mixed it all and put it out.
When did Horrified flesh out to be a full band?
So we recorded the debut album at the college studios again. And then from there, we had the lineup, obviously record all the parts. So we just basically took it to the live environment. No, sorry, we played live first before we recorded the album. So I got a lineup based for the festival, Biker Grave, in 2013. And we got a couple of the songs down from the demo and some songs that had been wrote for the album. We played that show, and then we started to record the full length, which was good because, you know, we had a proper lineup for it, and the musicians all brought their own technical skills to their instruments, which was good. Yeah, so it was basically kind of based around that debut album, really. The band kind of evolving from a project to an actual active band.
And has the lineup stayed stable since then?
No, but it's kind of a similar story to, I guess, Death, really, you know, the band Death. We've had bits of lineup changes throughout our history, and then we had a really solid lineup from kind of the back end of 2017. A guy called Dan Jordan, who's a really good friend of mine, joined on guitar. And then his brother Michael, who they used to play in a thrash metal band when they were teenagers. And they're really talented musicians because they started playing live kind of when they were 13, 14, 15. So they joined the band with a really good friend of mine called Lee. And we played a lot of gigs together in 2018. We did a tour. We did a couple of weekend tours. We did some really good one-off shows where we supported Cannabis Corpse locally, which was probably our sort of biggest show last year. And that kind of lineup brought a lot of chemistry and a lot of bonding and a lot of inspiration and just kind of a real chemistry, which was picked up on quite a bit by the crowds who saw us at gigs. And it was a really inspiring time. And then we recorded the latest EP with that really good vibe. And I think that's what really made the music come alive this time, was having that stable lineup with those kind of friendships and relationships between the band and the overall chemistry at a real peak. But recently our drummer has wanted to go into military service. So he basically left this year. But we have a new drummer lined up who's friends with Dan, who studied with him music performance at college. He saw us play a show in London last January as part of our tour. He really likes us and he's really keen to play, and he's a really talented, versatile drummer. So we kind of just decided to recover and recuperate and take care of real life for the rest of this year. And then really early in 2020, we're going to be jamming again on the EP material and looking to get back out there and do some really peak tours, gigs, and work on the next full length with this new lineup. So we're all really excited for that.
Do you handle most of the songwriting?
Yes, I had done in the past. The EP provided a lot more creative input from Dan. So I ended up going round Dan's to do some collaborative writing sessions with the intention of being more collaborative with the songwriting. And Dan had some input on a few of the tracks, and we wrote one of the songs together. But on the EP, the material still quite based on my songwriting. However, there's quite a lot of material ready for the next full length. And I'd say the writing's probably about a 50-50 split. And it's becoming a lot more dynamic. And there's new like flavors and different sort of sections that I would never have really brought to the band without Dan's creative input. And he's really inspired right now. And he's a really, really good writer. So I'm really excited for that moving forward.
So let's talk about this EP. It's called Sentinel, and it was released Friday, December the 13th. Tell me about the recording of Sentinel.
So, as I say, the recording of Sentinel was quite an inspired process because of the chemistry we had as the lineup at the time. And everyone was really excited to record the material that we'd gotten down as a band first in the practice rooms and playing new songs live, and then taking that material to the studio, as opposed to kind of writing songs, recording them from the ground up, and then learning them and playing them live. So it was a different way of doing things this time, and it worked out for the best, I would say. We recorded the drums in September over the course of 2 days at Downcast Studios, which we used for the previous album. And it was just a blast. Michael's a really talented drummer, and it was just great just to sort of see what Michael brought to the songs, his fills and kind of flourishes on the cymbals, and his kind of jazzy dynamic, because Michael likes quite a lot of non-metal music, as we all do. I mean, our main passion is obviously metal, but Michael has quite a passion for sort of R&B and stuff like that, and funky drums. So it was just great to have that like new dynamic to the drumming on this EP, which gives it the progressive edge I mentioned earlier. And we also recorded the vocals on that weekend. And then we recorded guitars and bass on weekends from home, dry. So I'd go around Dan's on a Saturday or a Sunday, and we'd spend quite a bit of time around his laying down the tracks. And it was great to do that because I'd always recorded the guitars by myself, dry, at home. And it's really, really difficult to kind of analyze if a take is tight enough when it's just you. And he's got a really good ear, and he's really musical. He's musically educated, and he's quite experienced and quite an advanced player. So he pushed me quite a lot with my own personal performance in terms of getting the riffs tight and making sure that my solos were really spot on in terms of the bending being in pitch, and just kind of if the runs were clear, etc. So this time the recording process was a much more inspired process in terms of having a lot of different people's ears on the recording, as opposed to it being quite sort of insular, I would say, like with my own recording process. And it definitely shows in the EP, I think. If you listen to the tightness of the rhythm playing and the tonality of the solos versus the previous record, there's a huge difference. So basically I have my band members to thank for that process, I think. But we spent a lot of time on this EP recording it. My whole intention was to basically put just as much effort into recording a full length into an EP, just to make sure that we really hit the nail on the head and make sure that we were happy with everything, and just to kind of get the experience of recording as this lineup, to take that same kind of process and attention to detail onto a full-length recording. And I mean, I know the EP is quite long at 30 minutes, but I'd still say it feels like a long EP rather than a short full-length, if that makes sense.
The album was mixed and mastered by Damien Herring, who listeners will probably know from his work with Blood and Incantation. How did he get involved with this?
We first worked with Damien back on the second full length of Despair, which was released through a couple of different quite underground indie labels back in 2016. Essentially, I got into Horrendous with the first album, The Chills, and I thought it was an amazing album at the time. And I just remember, I can't remember how exactly, but I just stumbled upon his Facebook profile back in like 2013 or something. And we just started chatting about music on and off through Facebook. And we kind of connected through melodic death metal quite a bit. So Damien expressed that he was really into bands like Garden of Shadows, Edge of Sanity, In Flames, you know, kind of that type of stuff, which is one of my main loves in metal. And we just started talking on and off, and as the kind of time passed, we started talking more and more. And then when we recorded the second album, I was in employment at that time. So the demo on the album was recorded whilst I was a university student, so I was really broke. And then for the second album, based on how the second Horrendous album sounded like Dices, and knowing Damien produces bands, I was like, that's it. Like, Damien's mixing and mastering this album. So we worked with him then, and we've become really good friends from working with each other. I mean, Damien's mixed, mastered, and reamped the past 3 releases. So we've got quite a good working relationship. We're quite good friends, and we actually met in Holland in May when Horrendous played the first European show at a festival called Graveland, and we hung out with my best friend and the rest of the guys in the band. Matt Knox and the rest of the guys are also really cool, and we chat a bit, and they're all into sort of Horrified and really like us. So maybe in 2020 we'll hit the road together, because they're quite keen to jam with us, so that'll be really cool.
So you mentioned that Horrified started off as more of a straight-ahead death metal band and are now more along the lines of melodic and progressive death metal.
That's right.
How did this change come about?
Well, I think I'm the type of person that is really anti-stagnant, so I'm always kind of wanting to progress. And that's not just kind of in the music, that also kind of is applied to like my career and a few of my other hobbies outside of music. And I mean, most of the bands I'm into, like really, really into, followed the similar path. I mean, I made the comparison to Death before with our lineup with our lineup history in the past. And it's just kind of like, that's just how it seems to work out, you know. At the time when we recorded the debut album, I was just constantly listening to sort of early Gorguts, early Death, you know, US death metal and early Swedish death metal. And then I decided that, well, actually, when I heard Ecdysis and I heard it was a little, the second Horrendous album, and then it was a little bit more melodic, and it had that kind of hints of mellow death and slight progisms, I was like, right, that's cool. So this can obviously all be kind of implemented and melded together. And it just sort of happened naturally, where the band kind of took more of the Swedish dynamic from the first album, kind of like how early Dismember get a little bit moody and emotional and melodic on some of their songs, like the closing track on the second album, Dreaming in Red. I was like just totally all about that, and it just seemed to kind of happen naturally, really. And my taste always kind of expands and develops slightly as I kind of, you know, progress in my own kind of musical endeavors. So it just seems like a bit of a natural progression. I do think if you listen to kind of, say, one track from each release, like, you know, Off the Bounce, or even all of the record, if you listen to that first album into the second one, into the third one, it seems quite of a natural kind of development. But I think when you listen to the EP, it is a bit of a big kind of step forward into new dynamics and stuff like that, which was kind of inspired by other people's input and just how things happened with the songwriting and stuff like that.
Would you say this new EP is the most collaborative album?
It's definitely the most collaborative Horrified release, absolutely, just in terms of everything.
this will be your first release for Testimony Records. How did you get involved with them? Or how did they get involved with this release?
Well, so if you look at every album, it's like released by a different label, which is funny looking back. But now we're actually on the label now. So the deal is that Dennis and Testimony are going to release a full length and kind of have a lot more involvement with the recording process and stuff, like helping us out with some expenses, which is really, really awesome. So it feels like we've got a home now. So we were initially signed to Shadow Kingdom, and without going into too much detail for the sake of privacy, things fell through with that deal. And obviously with me being quite tight with Damien at this point, and he works with Dennis quite a bit in terms of doing the production for his band's releases. For example, he mixed and mastered the Sentinel Horror EP that they did just before their recent full length. So Damien just got in touch and said, I know you guys are without a label right now and you're wanting a label. Do you want me to kind of, mention to Dennis that you guys are needing a label to work with and you guys are recording a new release soon? And at this point, I was just like, yeah, absolutely. Because I'd seen the success of that EP. I'd seen the success of the Sentient Horror EP in terms of sales and promotion, and I kind of looked at the label and saw that Dennis was, signing bands and investing in good promo and really wanting his label to grow and securing good distribution. He's just recently secured distribution with Season of Mist and Soul Food. So I think that was really, really awesome, and I'm really glad and appreciative of that. And then I just started messaging Dennis and I said, yeah, we're recording the EP to kind of rebrand the band, so to speak, and to create a little bit of hype for the full length. How do you feel about that? And he just said, well, I'd prefer to sign the band for a full length, but, I've been following the band for a while and I've got 2 of your releases on vinyl. I love you guys. So let's do the EP into an album, like as a deal, because he thought that would, be good to establish that kind of foundation with his promotion contacts and his distribution. And as I say, for us, we wanted to do an EP first this time and then lead into the album for several different reasons. And he thought that was a pretty good sort of plan in terms of the band's like progression in terms of growth and stuff. And then basically based on demos that we'd made, he signed the band, which I thought was really awesome because we've never been signed off kind of demos before. It's always been a case of completely finishing the record we were making at the time and then kind of pitching it to labels and stuff. So I thought it was a much more organic process this time. And it feels like we were really, really meant to work with Dennis and Testimony. And I'm really, really pleased with the results so far. He's really passionate and enthusiastic about Horrified and the band. And he's pushing us really hard. And he's obviously investing a lot into us. So I'm glad we found a home with Testimony. And I'm really, really looking forward to working with them again on the premise of the next full length.
So before I let you go, tell me what you have planned for the future.
Well, in January, we're going to regroup with our new drummer and start jamming. And then because it's been such a dry year for us with gigs and stuff, we really, really, really all have a fire to get back out there because we had generally some of the best times of our lives out on the road together last year. Our bass player, Lee, plays a lot of gigs and does a lot of tours in different bands. And he'll always say that the tour that we did last January was one of the most intense in terms of kind of how much we bonded on the road and how good the shows were and the kind of creative energy and performance aspect in terms of our energy on stage, like bouncing off each other's vibe and stuff, which to me kind of speaks volumes coming from a bit of a seasoned veteran on the road. So we'll be looking to kind of do that again with our new drummer, play gigs, finish writing the album, record the album, and basically just go full ham with the band next year, really.
So you mentioned that the EP will be leading into a full length. Do you have any new material for the full length written already?
Oh yeah, there's lots, and we're really, really confident about this material. There's a couple of definite tracks that I've finished that were like, hell yeah, these are definitely making it to the album. There's actually the longest song I've ever wrote personally. It's a 13-minute song, and I, at the moment, consider it kind of the apex of my creativity. And the guitar profile has gotten quite a bit of really, really good and extensive feedback from the other members, kind of agreeing that it needs to be the kind of closing epic on the next full length. So we're excited for that. Dan has wrote a really, really awesome dynamic kind of 9-minute sort of tune, which goes through a lot of different elements of our sound. It kind of melds together the epic mellow death with the progressive elements and bits of black metal, and the changes work really well, and he's brought that one to the table. And then there's a couple of shorter progressive songs that have a bit more of an intense death metal edge, maybe kind of more similar to bands like Blood Incantation, Skeletal Remains, and Atheist, that are ready. And then other than that, we've got kind of songs that are like half finished, or songs that are finished, but we're like, maybe we could ditch these because we're writing better material at the moment. So there's basically just lots of material. Some kind of definitely will make the album, some won't, to make way for, you know, what might come. But we're all very excited about the material that's wrote so far, and I personally can't wait for the creative process to be complete so we can kind of bring this to life, because I think this fourth full length is going to be the peak of the band so far, and I'm really excited for people to hear it.
The new Horrified EP is called Sentinel. It's out now through Testimony Records. If people want to follow your band, how can they do that? How can they find you online?
It's the usual. So obviously we've got Facebook, Instagram. Our music's available through our own personal Bandcamp page, where you can find all 4 of our releases. You can also order through the label's Bandcamp, the label's Big Cartel. You can stream all of our stuff on Spotify. Yeah, that's us online.
And are there any special formats or physical releases of the new EP that people can order?
Absolutely. So the first pressing of this EP is a limited run of 300 Digipack CDs, 150 yellow swirl coloured vinyl, and 100 black vinyl. But I believe the black vinyl's already sold out in the pre-order stages, so if people want this on record, first pressing, you're going to have to order through the label page or directly through us. Our copies are just arrived today, actually, so they're going to be up on our Bandcamp page by the end of the week. Well, sorry, they'll be up on our Bandcamp page before the end of the week, and you can get you can support us directly, by ordering through us, or you can order through the labels Big Cartel, and you can also order through high quality distros like Season of Mist and places like that.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to say?
This is the first time I've ever been asked to do this kind of interview, Adrian, so thank you very much for getting in touch. It was a pleasant surprise. It definitely made me feel quite cool. Thank you for your support personally, and just thank you for anyone that's took the time to listen, and just generally thanks everyone for the support. To be honest, Horrified was kind of, when it first started, it was always the sort of back-burning project compared to other bands I was playing with at the time. It was a band I did more for fun as a project to kind of get out just that style of death metal, which I still like, but at the time absolutely like loved and worshipped. And it's kind of evolved into this entity where people seem to be really into us and buy our stuff and give us really good feedback at gigs. People seem to like us. My bands I'm into, like, who I know online, seem to think we're quite good and give us good feedback. So it's evolved into something I could have never really imagined. So I'm just really grateful for everyone's support in any way, and that extends to any type of support, even just spending the time to listen to the band, people that buy our stuff, press that support us. And just keep an eye out for us being on the road next year. We're hoping to really expand our live presence outside of the UK and obviously within the UK. And obviously we're going to be recording the next full length when we're ready. And I think it's going to be something quite special. So yeah, thanks again.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you. Take care.